Let's get some energy going for Drew Davis, everybody! What's up, everyone? Let's hear it from Miriam and Brinn. Give them a big hand. And also, let's give it a hand. You might have seen the cameras and the people around. Let's give it a hand for the crew and Station Theater for taking care of us. They came up with this wonderful set design. They were like, Drew, tell us about you. And I said, well, I'm into some geeky things, you know, like movies, I like TV. I think I mentioned Pokemon once. And they were like, got it, a room of a 5th grade boy. This will be great. And I love it. I'm very appreciative of them. My name is Drew. I'm from Nashville. I always like to ask the audiences when I'm doing a local show, clap or cheer if you're like from this area, if you're a Middle Tennessean. Do we have? Love it. You know, in Smyrna, we get a lot of locals. I feel comfortable with you all. When I say that in Nashville, it's like no one cheers because they're all from California. It's like it's just, and I have one person from California there. I'm glad you're here too. I am from Nashville. I've been in Middle Tennessee most of my life, which does mean I am a white man from the South. It's a weird thing to say sometimes. It's weird, and here's the weirdest thing no one talks about when you're a white man from the South. Other white men feel really comfortable telling you racist things. And they walk up to like, you'll appreciate this, and I never do. Not too long ago, I heard a racial slur I never knew existed. This man bumped into me and got very angry and said, whatever, Taco Bell. I was like, excuse me, sir, I'm Italian, it's Papa John's to you, okay? I'm Italian, I'm from the South. I'm also a Christian. Do I have any Christians in the room? Turned into a mega church. We did recognize which tables did not clap, and we just want you to know, we're praying for you. No, I'm just kidding. We are gonna shine a light on those people, the light of Jesus, actually, honestly. No, I am a Christian. I like to tell people that recently I'm a single Christian, and where I'm at with the whole dating thing is I think I'm done dating Christian women. That's where I'm at. Did you hear the sigh of relief from all the women when I said that? That was an interesting. And here's why. The last Christian girlfriend I had, when she broke up with me, she said, and I quote, "It's God's will for us not to be together." She literally holy ghosted me, you all. I like that joke because all the women here are like, we get why she broke up with you. We understand. And there's some like, I don't want you guys to think I'm too lame. There's a few people here that I want to like try to impress and look cool for. So it doesn't always work badly for me. Sometimes it works out well. Like this last time, me and this lady were talking, we were hitting off pretty well. So I was like, hey, we should go on a date sometime. And she said, sure, where should we go? And I said, I don't know. I've never been to this point in the conversation before. Now I can tell you guys are a fun audience, you're nice people, we've had a blast so far with you all, so I'm gonna let you in on a little secret. All of us comedians, we like talking to you after the show. We like to get to know you, it's meeting the people, that's one of our favorite things to do, but I feel the need, since I have the stage, to tell you all some preemptive constructive criticism right now, which is start now thinking about some of the things you're gonna say to us. Because some of you are really mean, and really weird, and make it awkward after shows. I get a lot of weird things said to me after a show. The most common one is people come up to me after a show and say, hey man, you were actually funny. I know. Here's something that happened a few weeks ago, but I tell you, I've been thinking about it every day since then. It was Huntsville, Alabama. We just did a show, and I gotta say, I did pretty good. I felt pretty good about my routine. People coming up to me afterwards telling me I was funny without the actually, so you know it was going good. And this one man came up to me, and he leaned in and he shook my hand, and he said, hey man, hang in there. You're like, what does that mean? I don't know. Then recently, last week, I got the opportunity to do some shows in Nashville, and so some friends came out, and one of my friends after the show said, hey, Drew, I think you're the best gay, clean comedian in Nashville. And I'm straight. But credits are credits, so I was like, tell your friends, let them all know. I get it. I've all my life, I've heard people tell me I'm gay. It's very weird, and I've realized it's because of my high voice. I've heard I sound like every black comedian when they're impersonating a white person. And I've never met my biological father, but if I had to guess, I'd say John Lovitz. What do you guys think? I hate when that joke gets a laugh. Because here's the kicker, I didn't write that joke. Another comedian friend said, hey, you should say this on stage. And I was like, I don't think it's gonna work, but I'll try. First night I did it, it got an applause break. I got a new joke and I defriended someone, honestly. No, I mean, everyone thinks I'm gay. Even the internet thinks I'm gay. Not too long ago, I took a Facebook quiz. I don't know if you guys still do those things, but I do sometimes. It was which stand-up comedian are you? So I took the quiz, and I was hoping for one of my favorites. I was hoping for Jim Gaffigan, John Mulaney, Jerry Seinfeld. I got Ellen DeGeneres, so... And it's funny, being a comedian in the South, a lot of times you perform in front of redneck audiences. Now, we're close enough to Nashville. We are in Smyrna, but I just get the feeling there's not a lot of rednecks here. But you travel up to Jackson, Tennessee. Yeah, exactly, yeah. And so there's this one guy that came up to me after the show. And here's the problem with rednecks is in my audience. They want to laugh at my jokes because I'm hilarious. But if I'm gay... they ain't laughing at that joke. Because I don't know if you guys have heard this, but if you laugh at a gay person's joke, you become gay. That's how it spreads. So this one gentleman came up to me after the show, and he was very confused. He was just looking at me. He's like, so, you know. And I knew, but I wanted to mess with him. So I was like, no, I know what. He's like, are you gay? And so right off the bat, I said, only if you are. And he gave me his phone number. We're going out for lunch next week, guys. I'm in too deep on that one. But growing up, my high voice was a real insecurity for me. I used to get made fun of it in middle school and in high school and in college and last week on YouTube. Like, it's everywhere. And one thing I've learned is everything about us is on purpose. Even the things you're insecure about. And so part of growing up is taking the things you're insecure about and learning to kind of love them and realize they're part of you. And there was a time when I first started comedy where my high voice actually saved my life. And I'll tell you about it. It'd be weird if I just moved on to my next joke and told you no content. No, but I'll tell you about it. So this was almost a decade ago. And we don't always get to perform at nice places with Pokemon plush toys around us. Sometimes when you first start, you take whatever you get. So I had to perform at a really sketchy biker bar. Like, I walked in there and it looked like everyone there had just escaped from prison, from killing people, to show up to the comedy show, right? So I was a little uneasy, so I went to the bartender and I asked her, I said, hey, what's the craziest thing that's ever happened here? And she said, see that guy over there? Last week, he stabbed that guy over there. And turns out they were comedy fans. So, the night went fine. I did my routine, it was fine. Honestly, the night went better than fine. I was hitting on the bartender, she was hitting back. That's not the right term for that, but... And at one point, she leans in, and she says the one thing you never want to hear a hot woman say to you at a biker bar full of potentially serial killers. She leaned in, and she said, hey, I just want you to know, my boyfriend's here, and I don't even care. But I did. I was like, how do I get out of this? So this is what I did. I leaned back in, I said, and I just want you to know, my boyfriend's here, and I don't care either. Thank you. Sir, you started that applause break. You were the chief of the applause break there. That was really cool. So before I was a comedian, I was a youth pastor for 15 years. Thank you, one person in the back. Here's what I've learned since not being a youth pastor. It is really weird to tell a group of people that you used to be a youth pastor, right? Like when I was a youth pastor, if I told you I was a youth pastor, you all would be like, good for you, man, you're doing great things. But when you say you used to be a youth pastor, people are like, why youth? So let me go and answer the two questions you're wondering. Yes, I still believe in God, and no, I didn't do that. But I started out as a youth pastor when I was 19 years old. I know, that's a little young, right? Like, no, I was 19 years old. I was so young that children would ask me God questions as a youth pastor, and I'd be like, that's a great question. Let me go call my youth pastor. I don't... And then I kept that job for 15 years. I went from being a 19-year-old youth pastor to becoming a 35-year-old youth pastor. Went from a 19-year-old child prodigy youth pastor, those were my words, nobody else's, to being a 35-year-old single, unmarried youth pastor. Do you feel that tension? We can, look, in this room, there might be people that don't believe in God at all. There might be people that love God and believe in God. But no matter what you believe in God, if God exists, he wants all of his youth pastors married. Let's just be honest. It's not in the Bible, but maybe it should be. Okay, maybe it... I did my best to not be a weird, creepy youth pastor as a single, unmarried man, but sometimes you just couldn't not. All right, it's true. If you ever become a youth pastor, here's some good advice for you. You want to go to the kids' extracurricular activities, right? So as a youth pastor, I would go to their band concerts, I'd go to their choir concerts, I'd go to their middle school girls' volleyball games, just looking like this, just showing up, just sitting with the moms, cheering, let's go, ladies, you got this. And then our team would score and all of us would cheer, yay, good job, girls. And then the moms would look at me like, oh, which one's yours? And I would say, none of them. And I've learned the only thing creepier is if I was like, all of them. That's not something you want to say. And listen, here's the thing. I've done comedy enough where I never want to make people feel weird. So I do have a lot of jokes about that are pro-youth ministry and Christian, but I'm aware that there are some people here that don't go to church, that aren't Christians, and maybe you have to go to church sometimes and you feel weird about it. So I've brought a joke specifically for you that I hope gives you a tool. I'm going to teach you a game you can play at church when you don't want to be there, okay? It's my favorite game. I think you guys will love it. Sunday's tomorrow, so you could play it tomorrow if you want. It's called Inappropriate Things Old Women Tell You at Church. Some of you have already played it, it sounds like. Some of you... Listen, you can play it, you're solo, you can just have a little point value system, you can play it with some friends, make a competition out of it. Here's the one to beat, though. This is the one that happened a while back, right when I first started doing comedy and traveling around a little bit for it. This old woman came up to me after church, and she had a very angry face. She was like, hey, Drew, I've heard you've been doing a lot of this comedy lately. What's all that about? And I was like, well, I'll tell you. I go out and I tell jokes and I make people laugh, and I'm loving it. It's so much fun. I love to travel, and I don't know, maybe one day it'll be a real job, you know? She glared at me in the way that only old Southern women at church can do. She glared at me. She's like, well, just remember, if you're not making money from it, it's not a real job. And I was like, aren't you a stay-at-home mom? She said, I am, son, and it's time for you to move out. So that's a thing. Here's the thing, and here's another thing, especially if maybe going to church isn't your favorite thing, maybe we can bond over this. I know not everyone likes youth pastors. I've met a lot of the youth pastors, and I get it, all right? I do, we're like frat boys for Jesus, okay? I get it. And if we all went around the circle here, we could probably pick one thing about youth pastors we don't like. I'm not going to do that, but I will tell you mine, all right? So this is something I noticed when I was a kid going to church camp and then as an adult working the church camps, okay? It always happened the first day of church camp, especially for some reason the middle school camps. I don't know why the middle school, but it always happened there. You'd have the youth pastor get up on the first day of camp. and he'd be giving the sermon to the middle schoolers. And at the beginning, he'd have his PowerPoint slides up there and show you a picture of like a professional portrait of his family, like him, his wife, and his 4 kids, one of which was adopted to let you know that he's holier than you, okay? And that wasn't what bothered me. What bothered me was that it was always the guy youth pastors that would point to their wife in this picture and be like, and here's my smoking hot wife. What am I supposed to do with that as a middle schooler? Like what? I can't go up to you after the sermon and be like, sir, that was an amazing message. And you're right. Your wife is smoking hot. I would totally do her in the confines of marriage. Say what you will about that joke, but that is the most Christian and biblically accurate sex joke you've ever heard. Now, if you do go to church, if you are a fan of church and you're there frequently, I want to give a little PSA on behalf of the youth pastors, which is stop asking your youth pastor this question. This is the question I got every Sunday. They would come up to me like, hey, Drew, when are you becoming a real pastor? So I would always answer the same way. I'd say, I don't know. When are you becoming a real Christian? And that's how I became a former youth pastor. That's a weird applause break to process. I don't know. Sometimes that's like a good job, you had a good joke. That one felt like a good job, you don't work at churches anymore. That's what that. Of course, there was a point where I really did feel led that it was my time to leave ministry and go into full-time comedy. And I'm not proud of this, but I was very arrogant and I was very concerned about what was the church going to do without me. I know, when I say it out loud, it's crazy, but I was so nervous about sitting down and telling the pastor. I was like, man, Jesus is gonna have to come back early because I won't be here. Like, what? I was like, he's gonna need to talk to someone, but I'll be gone. Who's he gonna go to? So I go, and I'm so nervous. I'm sitting down, I'm talking to the pastor, and I'm like, here it all is. I'm telling him about how God's moving in my life, how it's time to leave full-time ministry to go into full-time comedy. He's quiet the entire time. And so finally I say, sir, what do you think? And I'll never forget the 2 words my pastor told me when I told him I was leaving full-time ministry to go into full-time stand-up comedy. He said, and I quote, thank God. But I think we both knew that conversation was happening because a few weeks prior to that, I got to preach. And so I did my preaching on the Sunday. Then the next Monday, he pulls me into his office and says, Drew, we need to talk. I just need you to remember that when you're preaching, you're giving the word of God. You're not telling jokes. This isn't a stand-up comedy routine. And then he was like, I need you to be less funny. I need you to stop pausing for laughter. And I was like, I completely agree and I understand, but just so we're clear, which parts did you think were funny? I've learned since I've left vocational ministry that I have some controversial Christian opinions. That's what I've learned, is I have some things that really split the room down the middle. And since we're all best friends now, I'm going to share with you my most controversial Christian opinion. Yeah, you can't wait. This will be fun. And this is from the core of everything that I am. I believe with all my heart and everything that I am that Chick-fil-A is just okay. Okay. Half the room's applauding. You all are loading your guns. Okay. No, listen, and it's okay if you like Chick-fil-A food. That's not what bothers me. I'll tell you what bothers me. Have you met those Christians that go to Chick-fil-A and brag about going to Chick-fil-A? Like it's some kind of rite of holiness. They're like, I went to Chick-fil-A 4 times last week. As if I'm supposed to be like, wow, you must have wrote the Bible. And here's what I've learned. It does not work the other way around. I can't be like, yeah, well, I went to McDonald's 4 times last week. They're like, we can tell. And you should stop. Now, my favorite fast food, since now you're wondering, my favorite fast food, I don't think gets enough credit, and I'm working to change that if I'm being honest. They're honest to a fault. My favorite fast food is Little Caesars Pizza. Never as big of an applause as Chick-fil-A. They are very under. Does anyone here like Little Caesars? Do we have any fans? Okay, It's always just like 3 of us. It's never 5 or more. It's just me and 2 guys that look like me, honestly. I love Little Caesars. Their motto is hot and ready. Good has nothing to do with it. They don't care, and I love that about them. You can't complain at a Little Caesars. Did you know that? You go in there with your terrible pizza, and you're like, excuse me, sir, this is just cardboard with pizza sauce on it. And the little sad high school cashier, the one who just stares into the pizza slicer as if he's staring into the abyss of his soul, torn up about his girlfriend that broke up with him 10 minutes ago, the same one he got together with 20 minutes ago. And he's tearing up and crying as he's over your pizza. And those tears moisturize your pizza when makes things better. That's the one you want. You can't go up to that guy and be like, listen, this pizza's terrible. Because he'd be like, and? Look, it's warm and in your hands. We've done our job. I love that. I think I'm the Little Caesars of comedy. I'll take that title. Again, no one's fighting over it, but I'll take it. Instead of hot and ready, you could call me hot and sweaty. Some of you may be like, he's not very funny. How much did you pay? I showed up. Here I am. On time and friendly. Is he good? He's on time and friendly. He's got a nice personality. I'm actually getting the reputation of being the best substitute comedian. Seriously, I may not be someone's first pick or second pick, but I'm a really dependable third pick. That's what I've learned. My most common introductions are, next comedian couldn't make it tonight. Here's Drew. Thank you. I'm covering his set tonight. He was supposed to be here. My favorite thing about Little Caesars is their secret menu. Do you guys know about Little Caesars' secret menu? Of course you don't. 2 of you might have. The rest of you are like, no, we have disposable income. We pay for things now. We don't need to eat Little Caesars pizza anymore. Listen, if you haven't done this, try this, all right? And I think it'll change your mind about Little Caesars. So everyone knows the crazy bread is their most popular item with those breadsticks with the garlic and Parmesan topping. That's the best thing, obviously. But did you know you could get that topping on any pizza you want? Yeah, you're welcome. But here's the challenge. It's a secret menu item, so you have to know the code, and it's called a heart attack. And that's awkward to order in public, sir. Last week, I went to my favorite Little Caesars, and I said, yes, I'd like a pepperoni pizza with a heart attack on it. And she just looked me up and down, and she's like, you'll get there. So I told you guys I was a youth pastor from 19 to 35. I didn't talk about this much now, but I'm going to talk about it now. That means that I, during 19, 20, and 21, was a youth pastor. Sir, if I'm being so bold, what were you doing at ages 19, 20, and 21?
Nothing good.
Nothing good? Okay. He might have been doing drugs. He might have been going to college parties. He might have been doing drugs at college parties. He might have been doing crazy wild living. No judgment if that was you. It wasn't me. Do you know why? Because I spent my 3 formative college years telling children don't do any of that. But there I was 3 years ago. The first time as an adult, I wasn't a pastor anymore. So I could finally get into some of that wild living you experienced when you were 19. And I did something so wild recently, I want to tell you about it. I went to Hooters for the first time. And boy, let me tell you, I'm a fan. I did not realize that beautiful women in not much clothing handing me chicken wings checked off a lot of boxes on it. Oh my Lord. Have you been to Hooters, sir? That guy has, it's oh my gosh. But here's the thing. No one ever applauds to this, but I like to make it awkward. Clap or cheer if you're a middle-aged single man. They won't. Even if they're here, they will not. And listen, I'm a middle-aged single man, and I can tell you one of the scariest things about being middle-aged and single is now, let me back up. When you're in your 20s and you're single, you're afraid that you're gonna die alone. But then once you hit 30, you're like, wrap it up, let's go. Jesus went at 33, and I think he was on to something, honestly. That seems like You mean before your bladder decides I'm done? Like, that seems like a good... But when you're a middle-aged single man, you have a new fear. It's not that you're gonna die alone, it's that you're gonna be the creepy guy at the party. Right? The creepy guy that walks up to some beautiful woman and is like, hey, can I tell you about the cool Pokemon plush collection I have in my room? You can come see it if you want. I mean, it's just, I mean that innocently. I didn't mean that. Like, no, you don't want to be that guy. So when you become a middle-aged single man, you start wondering, what's the gateway to becoming the creepy single guy at the party? So there's a point of, when I went to Hooters, I was like, is the gateway drug going to Hooters at 12 o'clock in the afternoon or on Tuesday? Because if so, and I'm happy to report that I was not the creepiest guy at Hooters. I did meet him though. Here's what happened. So I go in, the hostess sits me down at my table, I propose to her, she says no. And then I'm sitting there and I'm just watching Hooters, and that's when I see the creepiest guy maybe on earth. This man walks in, he looks around at the establishment, our eyes meet, kind of like an unspoken bro bond, like, yep, we're sad and single, let's not talk about it. And then he looks around, and then he looks at the hostess and he says, is Stacy working tonight? Oh, I know. I think the only thing creepier is if he would have been like, it's okay, I'm her youth pastor. Listen, all I'm saying is if you're the kind of man that goes to your Hooters specifically to name a waitress out, you're closer to your Netflix special than I am. And it might be a different genre. No, I don't think anyone was surprised that I got up here and just did 10 minutes of food jokes. Like, none of you, when I walked out here, none of you were like, he's gonna talk about his hot wife. When I got up here and started about Chick-fil-A and Little Caesars and Hooters, you're like, that makes sense. I'm getting to the weight and age where people feel comfortable telling me I'm fat, and I don't love that. This is something that happened to me recently, and I'm not trying to brag about my social life, but I was bowling by myself. And I'm over there just living my life, and this little middle school girl comes over, maybe like 7th grader. She shows up and she says, hey, you have the body type of a professional bowler. So I did what any one of us would have done. I went home and I changed my dating profile to body type athletic. And I travel a lot with comedy now, and this is a new thing that's happening that I don't appreciate. My go-to road fast food, I told you my go-to home fast food is the Little Caesars. My go-to road fast food is Arby's. Do I got any Arby's fans out here? Okay, you know what? We might divide over Chick-fil-A and Little Caesars, but we are brought together by the love of Arby's, and I love that about this room. Listen, so I go to Arby's, and I always get the same thing, the #1 beef and cheddar, and they always ask me the same question, which is, would you like regular or large? And I always respond, I'd like regular, and then I get to watch them plus backspace. And then there was this one time I was eating at a Subway, again, not trying to brag about my life, but I was eating at a Subway, and I legitimately almost got in a fight with the sandwich making attendant. If that's what you want to call the spawn of Satan. I ordered my sandwich like any American's God-given right they can do, all right? And I asked for mayo on my sandwich because I like good things. And this awful human being, without even asking, grabs the light mayo and starts putting it on my sandwich. And I give her a look that says, do I look like a light mayo kind of guy to you? And she just looks at me and says, I don't know, you look like you bowl. Thank you. I know what you guys are thinking, and yes, I did peak in high school. Those were the glory days. I was my best. I was my final evolution in high school. All right, here's the thing. As cool as I may seem right now as a comedian at the Station Theater in Smyrna, Tennessee, in high school, I was the lead guitar player in a Christian punk rock praise and worship band. You have never heard those words together in a sentence. In case you're wondering, I brought a visual aid, keytar, as in a guitar-shaped keyboard. I was the lead keytar player in a Christian punk rock band, and I said this at a show last night, and this man in the back of the room yells, "Save some women for the rest of us." And I get it, not exactly the sexiest instrument I could have picked, all right? In fact, a few weeks ago, I had an old man come up to me after the show and was like, "Yeah, even in the 80s, we thought the keytar was gay." And I was like, okay, not helping my case here. But no, when I was in high school, I would have told you that was the sexiest instrument I could have picked up. I saw it in a music video, and I said, that's what I'm missing. It was not. But I would argue with other kids at church camp. We'd be at church camps, we have gigs at church camps, and there'd be beautiful other teenagers, like a lot of beautiful girls. And in 1 year specifically, I was like, I found the one I'm in love with. But the problem was there was this other guy that was also in love with her. And he said, "I don't know, man, she just seems more into me." And I remember it was my junior year of high school. And I said, "Yeah, but you just wait till she hears my keytar solo at tonight's worship night." And I'll never forget that night. She did hear my keytar solo. And 2 years later, she became a lesbian. Because if I can't have her, no man can. Of course, whenever people hear I was the lead keytar player in a Christian punk rock band, they always ask me the same question, which is, what was your band's name? And God help me, Smyrna, if I could change any one thing in history. Okay, let me back up. I would absolutely change the Holocaust first. But this is a close second. So it was me and 4 other Christian high school boys. We were like, let's come up with a smooth and sexy name for our band. And we named our band Vertical Motion. Correct. Where were you guys 20 years ago, okay? Oh yeah, it was. You might as well have just called us the Virgin Marys. I think that would have been just as applicable. But here's something kind of interesting. So, I graduated from Brentwood High School in 2006. That's not the interesting. Oh, thank you. Do I have a Brentwood High Schooler? All right, yeah. Absolutely. We've talked about this. We went to high school together. She's older though. You're not supposed to say that about women. That's why I'm single. Okay. So we graduated Brentwood High School, and also graduated Brentwood High School in 2006, singer-songwriter pop sensation Kesha. Did you guys know that? Isn't that cool? Do you ever wonder, maybe I come up in conversation when we're talking about music culture in Brentwood, Tennessee. Do you think that ever happens? Do you think anyone's ever like, yeah, well, everyone knows Kesha graduated here from 2006, but do you know who else graduated here? Yes, that's right. The lead keytar player for Vertical Motion. Thank you. That is the only time our band got an applause break, and frankly, that's one too many, honestly. But I'm gonna text them and let them know. One's in prison; he'll get it eventually. It's fine. So, as shocking as it may be, I did not find my fame as a keytar player. So I went with the next best thing. I was like, what's something else that women love that straight white men do? And so a few years ago, started a Fast and Furious themed rewatch podcast for the ladies, okay? No, I love it. Do we have any Fast and Furious fans here? Does anyone here like? Oh, okay. Oh, wow, cool, love it. Someone from over there, what's your favorite one? 5? Whoever said that, correct, great one. It's like the Avengers with cars. It's great, love it. Funny thing about that one, it was actually supposed to be a completely different movie, but Vin Diesel bought the script, was like, I'm gonna make it a Fast and Furious movie, and he did. I love Fast and Furious, and listen, it's okay if you don't love Fast and Furious, all right? It's okay, but I need you to know this about me. I get irrationally defensive about these movies. So if we talk after the show, just know, don't mess with my movies, all right? And I'll tell you why. This one guy recently we were talking about, he's like, I don't know, man, I think they should have ended after 6. And without even thinking, I said, I think you should have ended after 6. Man, it was like the Holy Spirit just came out. The spirit of Vin Diesel I don't know. It was, and here's something else. Here's a fun little The Fast and the Furious fact for you. Fast and Furious fun fact, if you will. Did you know that the first movie, The Fast and the Furious, that wasn't under the original title? They went through many different names for the movies, and one of the names was Race Wars, which is an awful name. But I like to think of a reality where that name stuck, and then they kept doing sequels. So they have 2 races, 2 wars, and Race Wars Tokyo Drift. That's weird. This isn't a Fast and Furious crowd. That's okay. If you guys watch the movies, you're like, that was a really well-written joke. Only a guy who can play guitar could write a joke like that. I ruined a date one time because of Fast and Furious. I know, the shocking part was when I said, I've been on a date one time. Here's what happened. We were on the date where it was just casual small talk. It was just a first date, nothing serious. But she was like, what movies do you like? And so I said, I love the Fast and Furious. And she said, that's stupid. She said, she actually got a little more angry than I thought, than usual, if you honestly. She was like, I could never watch such a dumb, stupid, unrealistic movie. And I was like, okay, do you work at Subway? Because I think I hate you. No, I said, well, okay, well, what do you watch? And this awful woman responded. She said, I like romantic comedies. And then she had the guts to be like, I think they're more realistic than Fast and Furious. Oh, no. We don't play that game. I looked her straight in the eye and said, they are absolutely not more realistic than Fast and Furious, and I'll tell you why. Now, I'm not above reproach. I know. Fast and Furious, a little crazy. In Fast 8, there's a scene where The Rock punches a torpedo and redirects it, saves an entire city. A little unrealistic, okay? But do you know why there's never been a sequel to your favorite romantic comedy? I'll tell you. Because every sequel would end with your favorite couple getting a divorce, just like 80% of American marriages. The sequel to Love Actually would have been like, Love Actually doesn't exist. Got some divorced people here, they get it. The sequel to 10 Things I Hate About You would just be another guy being like, and another thing! And my favorite sequel would be, the sequel of The Notebook would just be The Manifesto. And not to belabor a point, but if you pulled out your phone right now and you went to The Rock's TikTok page and you saw how much that man lifts every single day, I'm just saying it's kind of conceivable he could redirect a torpedo with his punch. No, I have a podcast. It's called the Quarter Mile Podcast. And my favorite thing about when you run a podcast is running the social media for it, like the TikToks and the Instagram and all that. And I'll tell you why. Because the most random usernames will follow you, right? So recently I was followed by Paul Walker, which was unbelievable because he's the star of Fast and Furious and dead. And then before that, I got another follower, Lucifer Morningstar. The devil. Probably not the real devil, I'll be honest, probably not the real devil, but it's kind of weird to think, what if it was, and the reason he follows my podcast is it's so bad it's now hell's best form of torture. I don't like that. But this happened a few months ago, it was really cool. A gym fitness apparel brand reached out to me, and they said, hey, we love your podcast. Would you be interested in being in a gym fitness apparel brand commercial? And I said, clearly you only listen to the podcast, because I don't have gym fitness apparel bod. She had said, no, you misunderstand us completely. We don't want you to be the fitness model. We actually already have the fitness model. We want you to be the creepy guy at the gym that hits on her. And at first, I was like, no, that's disgusting. I would never. But then they told me how much they were gonna pay me. And you know, creepy men need representation too, okay? So I took the job. It was my first acting job. I had never done anything like it before. I actually got a line in the commercial, which was really cool. I prepared for it. I was like really nervous. I said it a million times. I know you're wondering, what was the commercial? I'm going to reenact it for you. It's really just two scenes. The first scene is the girl, the fitness model. She's working out, and in the background you hear the fitness like apparel brand's motto, which is, I'm working on myself, for myself, by myself, right? And then I jump out and I say, and I'm watching. Thank you. I'm an actor. Thank you. So we did this in one take, if you'll believe it. And I didn't feel good about the take. I'd practiced so much, so I said, I think I can do better. Like, I think I could be creepier. And both the woman and the cameraman are like, that was plenty creepy. Your check's in the mail. Bye. This is always the part of the show where I like to let the women know in the audience. First of all, let's give it up for the women in the audience. Let's share it for all the beautiful ladies we have in our audience. I really mean this. I am very grateful for the women that come to the shows because it's a commonly known comedy fact that 80% of ticket sales are women. So I'm an ally, all right? And the other 20% are usually the men that they drug with them. So like we are a big fan of you all being here. So I always like to appreciate the women, but I also like to let you all know specifically, I am not a creepy person. And I know rule number one of being a creepy person is saying things like, I'm not a creepy person. So like I'm working on that, but I'll be honest, what I'm working on most is I'm very innocent, I'm very sweet, I never mean anyone any harm, but sometimes my brain moves faster than my mouth, or rather my mouth moves faster than my brain, and I say the wrong thing at the wrong time, okay? And it comes out completely wrong. I'll give you a couple examples. First of all, years and years ago, like I said before, we don't always get to perform at really nice places like the Station Theater. Sometimes you take what you get, and what you get is a really sketchy dive bar, right? So I was performing at this one sketchy dive bar that was so disgusting. Like the walls felt like they were made of Velcro. It was disgusting, okay? And so I was performing there, and there wasn't a seat to be found. It was a very good show, not a seat to be found. So I'm standing next to one of those high-top tables, and this beautiful woman walks over to me, and she puts her drink down next to the table, and she looks at me, and she says, "May I leave my drink here?" And in hindsight, what I should have said was absolutely no problem. But I wanted her to feel safe in this really sketchy dive bar, so I looked at her and with all sincerity said, "Yeah, I won't drug it." She picked her drink up and went out. Another time, I was at a different comedy show, and this time I was sitting in the back of the room. I was going up on the end, so I was just sitting there waiting, watching, and you all know this about me already. I love food, and there was this table of like three like sweet elderly women kind of sitting where you guys are sitting, and I couldn't help but notice that they ordered all the best food on earth. Like the people were telling jokes over here, but I was just looking at their burgers, being like, yeah, I could. It was one. I mean, and everything they brought was just so delicious looking. So when I got on stage, what I should have said was not what I was about to say. But I just looked at these sweet elderly women and I said, "I've been lusting over your table all night." It's a bold start. No, but I am glad that we're here and we're laughing and we're having a good time and so much fun. And if I'm being honest, I think I needed to be here more than anybody else, if I'm being honest. And I'll tell you why. Because my ex-girlfriend just got married. And okay, it's fine, but like, do you ever get dumped by someone and you're like, that's the biggest mistake you're ever gonna make? And then she gets married and you're like, or not, like I guess. And if I'm being truly honest, she wasn't one of my good ex-girlfriends. You're not supposed to rank them, but if I did, she would be pretty low, okay? Her first name was Lucy. I didn't realize it was short for Lucifer. She was the worst, okay? She was... And years ago, she actually found some of my comedy on YouTube, and I had a lot more jokes about her at the time. So she calls me up and says, "Hey, I don't like if you're doing jokes about me." And now I'd be like, that sounds like a you problem. But back then, I was a nicer person. So I said, "Oh, which joke was it? Like, maybe I can work on it. Like, was it the one where I accidentally called you Satan? Because I've learned since then women do not like to be called Satan." And then she said, "No, it's just that you tell people in public that we used to date, and I don't like that." I don't know. It's just, I'll never forget how she broke up with me. She said, and I quote, "It's God's will for us not to be together." And I know what you're thinking. He goofed. He told this joke already. Different words woman. Oh my, 2 women in my life have been called by their Lord and Savior to give this up? Are you kidding me? Last week at church, some lady looked at me and said, I'm praying that God finds you the perfect. Stop praying to God about my love life. It is not helping. You better not. Here's what I know about this audience, from based off of listening to you. You guys are all wonderful, nice, sweet, lovely people. Awesome. But most of you aren't comedians. Because you're wonderful, nice, sweet, loving people. That's what I know about you. For example, I love this table. I love that you guys are all out here. You're with your friends. It's a good night. You're having a good Saturday. Here's what I know about you guys, right? Because you're not comedians, unless you are, and then I feel really weird right now. But you're not comedians, which means, like, if you had sat down and you were like, I've been having a rough week and I want to tell you guys all about it before the show. And you aired your grievances out to your lady and her friends, and then afterwards they would be like, oh, I'm so sorry you're going through that. You're hurting. Like, what can we do? How can we pray for you? How can we help you? That's what they do because they're not comedians. But if they were comedians, if that was Brinn, if that was Miriam, and you grieved out all of your errors and all the things going on, they would look at you and they would say, you should tell that on stage. So this last story is what all the comedians in Nashville told me I had to come tell the Station Theater in Smyrna, right? This is the worst date I've ever been on in my entire life, okay? It was 12 years ago. It took place at Zany's Comedy Club at Nashville, Tennessee. I took my girlfriend at the time to go see her favorite comedian, Adam Devine. Have you guys heard of Adam Devine?
Yeah.
Okay, yes, a few of us. It was great. Okay, got a few fans that love it. Okay, so, and if you haven't heard of him, here's what you need to know to catch up. He's a comedian. He's got a lot of like Netflix specials and stuff like that. And he was my girlfriend's absolute favorite comedian. So seriously good boyfriend move for me, like getting tickets, right? So we go to the show. We see Adam Devine. We even get pictures with Adam Devine. We're walking back to my car and she stops mid-walk and says, Adam Devine just invited me back to his hotel room. And I'm gonna go. And just so we're clear, that is when the date ended. Because it's not like I could be like, oh, can I come? Nope. And if this ever happens to you, and I pray it doesn't, but if it does, I just want to warn you, the worst part isn't when that happens. It's the next day when you have to go back to work and all of your friends and coworkers and even some of the customers are like, hey man, how did that big date go last night? And this is what I said. I said, I gave her a night she'll never forget. It was hard though. You know, it was hard because I'm a big fan of heroes, as you can tell from my superhero shirt and my superhero room. I'm a big fan of heroes, and Adam Devine was a hero of mine. And so it was hurtful. And you're wondering now, who's my favorite superhero? And it's not Superman, it's actually The Flash. And when I was a kid, I used to love watching The Flash everything. I used to watch the cartoons, read the comics. I was a big fan of The Flash. But my one problem was he had very one-dimensional villains, right? For example, his worst enemy, and you're like, how does this apply? It does, I promise. His worst enemy was this guy named the Reverse Flash. And his whole thing was he used to look up to the Flash. He used to think the Flash was the coolest person ever. He idolized the Flash. He was the Flash's biggest fan. And then he met the Flash, and the Flash stole his moment of glory. And in that moment, the Reverse Flash was like, I'm gonna kill him. And when I was a kid, I was like, that's stupid. But then I met Adam Devine! And frankly, I'm Team Reverse Flash, honestly. Where's his movie? It's funny, I don't want to break our trust, but this isn't the first time I've told this story at a comedy show. And a few weeks ago, I told the same story, and this man came up to me after the show, and he didn't think about what to say to comedians when he meets them after shows. And he said, hey man, you said the Flash was your favorite superhero, right? And I said, I sure did. And he said, did you know in Lego Batman, the Flash is voiced by Adam Devine? He stole my girlfriend and superhero, just so we're clear. Now, a lot of you all cheered when I asked if you were Christian, so you're probably thinking to yourselves, Drew, you know, that was almost 12 years ago. Like, you were a Christian. Learn to forgive. Learn to love. Look past this. Where's the grace? And you all, I try. I really do. But little things keep happening. For example, 6 years ago, I was a youth pastor. And when I was a youth pastor, I taught Sunday school every Sunday. And I had teenagers that would come to my Sunday school class. And one Sunday in particular, the kids showed up and they said, "Hey, Drew, have you seen that new TV show, Righteous Gemstones?" Some of you are tracking. And I, at the time, had not. So I said what you would expect. I said, "No, I haven't seen it. Tell me about it." And they said, "Oh, it's a hilarious show, real satire in church. We think you'd really like it. And the youth pastor in the movie is so great." And I said, "Oh, who plays the youth pastor?" And they said, "You bet their butts they did." And then one child of God had the audacity to look me in the eyes and be like, "Yeah, I think you'd be a better youth pastor than you." So I killed him. And it's just funny because nowadays my comedian friends, the mean ones I was talking about earlier, they hear me tell this story and they say, "Drew, you're looking at this all the wrong way. Look at you now. You're a full-time comedian. You're performing on Saturday night at the Station Theater in Smyrna, Tennessee, filming your third special." I always wait for someone to be semi-excited for that. My friends are like, "Look at you now. It's your turn to go to a comedy show and go back to your hotel room with someone else's girlfriend." You know, it's hurtful that none of you jumped up. Other shows, men have offered me their women, which is weird too. But you know, I'll be honest, I don't want to be that kind of comedian, right? Like, I don't want to be the kind of comedian that goes back to his hotel room with someone else's girlfriend. I want to be the kind of comedian that can afford a hotel room. Listen, thank you guys so much. I've been Drew. You've been fantastic. Let's bring back our amazing host, Miriam Kirk.